Apologize for all the sound issues and our MC, gosh. Actually, let's give Justino a round of applause. Yeah. I think he's a great MC. He just came to us a month or so ago and was like, hey, I'd like to find a way to help out more, get more involved. Also a good opportunity to learn some public speaking, practice public speaking. So just really grateful that he saw a need. We were up here emceeing for each other every week and filling that need, so I really appreciate it. Also apologize a little bit. We got some construction going on. We got tables over here, stuff going on back there, but it's, a lot of things are a work in progress. So thank you for understanding. Dang it. Did it again. 6 years. 6 years I've been turning around looking at that screen. Okay, so today I'm continuing our series on spiritual laws, and today I'm going to be talking about where God guides, He provides. And this message is particularly meaningful to me because I feel like this is a message I need to hear. And hopefully, it can be valuable to you where you're at in your life right now as well. So, why are we talking about spiritual laws to begin with? I think it's good for us to remind ourselves about that. We have laws that govern our universe, whether we like them or not. Of course, there's laws that the government makes, and sometimes those laws are good and sometimes they're not, right? Because they're just decided by people. But we also have laws of like our health. If we eat good food and we exercise and try to live the best life we can, then we hopefully can be healthy. If we don't eat good food and we don't exercise, probably we won't be healthy. That's kind of the way that goes. There's laws of relationship, forgiveness, and trust. If trust is broken, then you have to heal the trust. And there's laws of nature, and we don't think about it so much, but there's also spiritual laws as well. If we understand the laws, we can try to live our life the best we can in accordance with those laws through which God made us to live our life, and we can live a more happy, fulfilled, prosperous life. And likewise, otherwise, even if we're ignorant of those laws, but we break them, whether we know them or not to be true, there'll be an effect of that. There'll be consequences, there'll be reactions of that. So it's in our benefit to understand why God made the world to be a certain way, how God made us to live our life and to be fulfilled and to be satisfied, so that we can do our best to try to live that way. So this topic, where God guides, He provides, is actually a very common topic. Like if you go to like a traditional Christian church, you'll probably hear this topic, not just because it rhymes, but because it's an important topic. It's something that we think about a lot. Like, okay. And so so normally this topic comes from a verse in the Bible from Isaiah 58. And that verse goes, let's see if I got it right here. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in His sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Sounds really nice, right? But actually, this verse comes from a much larger chapter of Isaiah that actually has a very different flavor and feeling to it and meaning. It's from a section called True Fasting. And in this section of the Bible, God is talking, he's expressing his frustration. He's saying, you guys are not, you keep asking for my blessing. You keep asking for me to be with you. You keep saying that, oh, we did this, we fasted, we bowed, we did all the things that you asked us to do. So where are you, God? We deserve your recognition and your acceptance and your love. But he's saying, but while you were doing those things, while you were fasting, you were criticizing people and you were hating people. And he's like, you were doing the thing that, you should be doing, But while you were doing that thing, you were fighting and you were like bickering and you were talking behind all these different things. It goes on and on and on. And then he says, but then it goes to this point where he says, if you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. And then it goes on. The Lord will guide you always. So it's not like the Lord will always guide us and will always point us in the right direction, will always be there for us, no matter how we live our life or what we're doing. That would be nice. If God could just do anything he wanted to do, whenever he wanted to do, regardless of our personal decisions, then he would. I think that a loving God would intervene when we were about to make a bad decision in our life that would hurt us maybe down the road or something like that. But he's saying that if we work to live our life in accordance with the way God would like us to live our life and treat people the way God would like us to treat people, on top of doing the things that he's asked us to do, then, like he says here, your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. Then the Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in his sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. So really, this isn't as so much of a guarantee as much as it is a promise, an agreement that God made with his people, that God extends to us as well. Just like in Matthew, when Jesus said, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find it, knock and the door will be opened to you." And just like in Corinthians, where it says, "The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you." In the way, the Bible is very much a story of God's promises to his people, and the story of his children trying to decide whether or not we want to fulfill our end of the promise, or whether we really believe that God is going to follow through with his side of the promise. Our struggle to have faith in God. In the story of the Garden of Eden, God promised Adam and Eve the tree of life and the three great blessings if they would just obey his commandment, if they would just listen to him. In the story of Cain and Abel, God told Cain that he would be accepted if he didn't give in to his anger, if he did what was right. God promised Abraham that if he was faithful, that he would bless him and his descendants, and they would number the stars in the sky. God promised Moses and the Israelites that if they followed the law, they would be blessed. And also our founder, our true father, when he was searching for answers to the suffering of the world and an understanding, God once again made a covenant, a promise, a deal in a way, that if he could walk the path that he asked him to walk, then he could find the answers to the questions of his heart. So these are figures of the Bible. These are figures of history. These are figures of God's providence. They're central figures of the Bible, people in pivotal points that we look back on now and it's like, okay, that person's faith and that person's decision, that person's promise with God changed the course of history. Or it was a pivotal moment in history, one or the other. But I'm sure that I'm not the only one of all of us here who maybe feel like that's a little bit irrelevant sometimes. That my life couldn't possibly have any significance to God like that. Now, I know that there's a maybe not socially acceptable, a spiritually acceptable answer. Of course God cares about me, right? Of course God is concerned with my life and my family. I mean, that's like, we all kind of, I think, want to be able to say that. And I don't think that most of us aren't brave enough to come out and say that we don't think that God cares about me, cares about my life. But I think that, I don't know about you, but for me, many times I find myself wondering, does God really care about what I'm doing in my life? Does God really care about what's happening in our little church here? And even though many times I try to tell myself, yes, of course he does, but sometimes I find myself doubting, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of you find yourself wondering sometimes. If God really if it really matters to God. Of course, there's many things happening in this world, right? Many world leaders, people who are doing amazing things with their life, billions of people in this world. What difference does my life and what I'm doing in my life make to God? And for some of us, we can easily use that as an excuse to say, well, it doesn't really matter what I do in my life. God doesn't care. And I think that also many of us are all in different walks in our life of faith. Some of us are still trying to figure out if we even really believe that God exists, much less than whether God cares about my life. So it's hard to put our lives in God's hands many times with many doubts and questions. Or sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we do believe that God cares about my life. We do believe that God is interested and invested in my life, but we kind of hope that God leaves us alone. Some of you can relate, right? God, I don't really want you to ask me to do something different or change my life in some way or follow some different path. Because that usually involves some level of discomfort, some level of confrontation, maybe of myself, and it's usually not terribly comfortable. And we want to be, I think all of us, deep down inside, want to feel like we have a close relationship with God, a close connection with God, but then it's often really hard to give up control of our life. It's hard to actually take that step and to ask God to guide my life, to lead my life, to intervene in my life. Because we want to have that intimacy with God, but we don't want to give up control of our life. It's hard. But I don't think that we can have both. I don't think that we can maintain tight control of our life and try to steer everything the way that we want it to be and have that kind of intimacy with God at the same time. But I believe that God is still calling people. I don't think it looks quite the same as in the Bible for most of us. Maybe you have had a different experience where you felt God called you in a vision or a dream. I know people who've had that kind of experience. But I think that probably the majority of us, or at least some of us, I've never had that experience, okay? Maybe I just speak for myself. But I can say that God does call us still in different ways. Let's say, how many years ago was this? I was 21 years old. 16 years ago? 16 years ago or so, I was living here a couple blocks away with my parents, and I was at a kind of a bit of a crossroads in my life, and I wasn't really sure what I should be doing, and I felt kind of down and depressed, and I had already spent some time doing this missions program, a couple years, and during the missions program, they would really try to encourage you to have a big mind, that you were going to be a leader someday. You were getting training to be used by God in some big way. And I went through the 2 years of the program, and I had a really good experience. Some things I had to work on afterwards challenged me. But then I find myself back at home, living with my parents, taking a couple classes at school, playing lots of video games, working on my DVD collection. Not a whole lot else going on. And naturally, I found myself wondering, what the heck? I just spent 2 years, of this really, challenging lifestyle to get all this training so I can do what? Go home and play video games and collect DVDs? I mean, I was doing some other things. I was helping with Sunday school a little bit here and there with Bill Brunhofer at that time. And I was, helping my parents with my sister and maybe a few other things here and there. But I didn't feel like I was really living my life in a way that I felt really good about. And especially with that program, having done the program and being like, this can't be like the goal of that experience, of that sacrifice. So I reached out to God, and I decided to do a 40-day or 21-day condition, and I prayed every day, and I did some cold showers and some different things like that as an offering, seeking for God's word, his voice. Hey, please give me I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm stuck in a rut, but I don't really know where to go or what to do with this. So I know there's something more, but I need your perspective. And that was my prayer during those times. And I was just asking God, surely you have something more for my life than the way I'm living now, but I don't see it. Please help me to find the way. And so after the condition ended, a few days later, I know some of you have heard this story, but if I'm being repetitive, just please bear with me. I was downstairs in the office, and I was having a conversation with an elder, and we were, it was one of those kind of brutally honest conversations where she was kind of a little bit chastising me for my lazy ways, and I didn't really take it that well. I was a little bit upset. I was like, who are you to tell me that I'm not living my life the way I should be living or whatever, And so I struggled with, I was a little bit upset, but then that was before service. I came up to service. My dad was giving the message, I think. I don't remember anything about the message, but I was already kind of in a vulnerable place in myself, and whatever the message was really hit me. It really hit me not just in an emotional level. I don't know if you've had this experience where you just felt like your whole soul was affected. Like I was crying, and I was really like, I got to do something. I got to do something. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but I realized later that this was an answer to my prayer. Because the decision that was available to me, the option that was available to me at that moment was to go back to this elder lady that had talked to me so kind of strongly and join her. She was a part of she was leading the group. Some of you know her, Jerry, and join her group, BTA, and become and see if I can offer my services to help with the teenagers that she was taking care of. And so I moved in, and then a few months later, we ended up moving to California, and that started me on the journey for the next 8 years of my life. I was with them. And then Adonia joined me at that time. A couple years later. We had 3 of our 4 kids while we were living with BTA, the program. And I definitely don't think that I would have just decided to do that on my own. But looking back on that experience now, during those 8 years, I gained so many tools and experience that has helped us to be successful as pastors today. So I really feel that was God. That was an answer to my prayer, yet I'd still had a choice. I still could have chosen to be like, whatever. I'd rather just be lazy. I'd rather just play video games. I'd rather just collect DVDs. But I think that all of us have a deeper calling on our heart than that. We know, our conscience knows. God speaks to us through our conscience that there's more that God might be calling us to do or to live. I believe that that was a life-changing moment for me and my family that could lead us to be where we're at today. So, in a way, it's very similar to what you see in the providential stories of the Bible. I think we all have moments in our life we can look at like that. But it may not be the big providence of God that's written in the Bible and the divine principle that people will study and be like, wow, God is amazing for thousands of years in the future. Maybe no one will know. But for me and for us and for anybody that I will affect or touch in the future of my life, my descendants, it's history. It's meaningful history. It's providential, you could say. Some of you probably were here at that time and you were wondering, what the heck? He just up and left. He joined this group and then like 3 months later he moved to California and didn't see him again for like a long time. But for me, it was what I needed. It was what I needed at that time. In some ways, we're really lucky. I think that, these providential people, they are caught up in God's, God's plan. And you don't have a lot of flexibility. You don't have a lot of say in your life so much when you're these people. I think we could be really grateful in some ways that we have, I think, our own free will, like our own choice more or less. We're not necessarily being asked by God to do this crazy thing, this hugely sacrificial thing. Many times we can choose our offering for God. We can choose how we want to give back to God. We can choose. And God wants to work with us. That's actually a huge blessing. I think that's something we can be really grateful for. So I want to share this excerpt from a speech I found that I thought was really, really awesome. It's from our founder, Reverend Moon. Okay. He said, "There is no one in the universe that knows you like God does. Is there someone else, someone more perfect than he is? There is no one more trustworthy than God. Not in your past, not in your present, not in your future. I found out through experience that no matter how difficult the situation may be, I can rest assured that God will not exploit me. In the worst kind of situation, when I was in prison, for example, going through incredible suffering day to day, even in that prison cell, God was with me. God did not say, 'I don't know you anymore. You are miserable. I don't care about you.' God was there to comfort me. When God speaks, there is no hint of a lie. Even though what he says sounds unreasonable sometimes, God speaks only the truth. Sometimes what he says is very bitter to me, and I feel I cannot accept it or adjust myself to it. But I must accept the truth, because God is not speaking for his benefit, but for your benefit. From that knowledge, God will ask certain things of you and teach you certain things of far greater value than anyone could come up with for you. Sometimes God will order you to do certain things that are absolutely contrary to your own thinking. So then, what will you do? You might say, 'Well, God, you are you and I am I. So you go your direction and I'll go mine.' But that is the road of destruction. Sometimes you may feel that it's virtually impossible to follow his instructions, yet once you accept it 100%, there is always a way to fulfill that instruction. You can always find a way if you take it seriously." Hold up. Okay. Let's say God promised you something. Is it an empty promise or will it be delivered? Once God makes a promise, once God makes a decision, He will always keep that promise, even if it takes thousands of years to be fulfilled. Time after time, he has fulfilled his promises. We all need this God. So, I recognize that each and every single one of us is kind of a different place in our life, different place in our relationship with God. Some of us struggle to make a commitment to God, to make promises to God. Maybe we have doubts about whether God will fulfill his promises. Maybe we made promises to God, or we feel like God made a promise to us many years ago that was never, maybe hasn't come to fruition or hasn't come to pass. Maybe some of us are struggling whether there really is a God and any of this even matters. But I think that the part about whether God exists or not, that's a journey you're going to have to take. But if we believe in God, and we believe in the God of love and the God of truth and the God of promises, and the God who knows us better than we know ourselves, God knows our potential more than we know ourselves, God that knows what our life will look like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. We can't see those things. Has our best interests in mind, will never betray us, will never lie to us, will never withdraw his promises from us, then I think we need to have a little bit of more humility to God and to maybe become reassured in some way that even if things haven't turned out the way we always hoped that they would, or even if we're afraid to make a commitment or make a pact or promise with God because we're not sure how that would turn out, what will God ask me to do? Where will God lead me? That we can remember that God will lead us in the right direction. God will lead us in the direction that we need to go, where we need to grow. And ultimately, we will be happier and more fulfilled for it, even if it's a little bit more painful along the way. Here's an interesting little quote, too, I found. God has a big notebook with a record of all your names, and he is planning how to mold each of you into the best shape. He has a plan for each one of you. And then I've also got a couple verses here from the Bible. This one's from Jeremiah. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and future. Also Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So if you've ever felt in your life that you weren't really fully in control, God was leading you in a direction, and it's uncomfortable, that's a good thing. Maybe it feels uncomfortable sometimes. It feels like I wish I had more control over my life. But if you feel and sense that God is guiding you in a certain direction, don't run away. Don't go the other way. Father said that's the path of destruction. If God is calling you, and only you know, I don't know if God is calling you in this moment or in some way in your life, then please see how you can respond to God's call, because it will only lead you in the right direction. So I'm going to finish with a prayer. A little bit different than normally I would pray. If you feel a calling on your heart today to make a deeper connection with God, to make a deeper promise with God, or to revisit an old promise, then I invite you to pray with me. Otherwise, you don't have to. I'm just saying. You can. Dearest Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for this day. So grateful for every single person here, all these brothers and sisters of this community. God, you know the path that each of us has walked. You know us better than our closest family members, our loved ones. And you have a bigger vision for us and hopes for us than we have for ourselves and anyone else has for us. We want to offer our lives to you. I want to offer my life to you, Heavenly Parent. Please guide my life. Please guide this community. We want to be in close intimacy with you. We have plans for our lives. I have plans for my life. I have a way in which I'd like to see my life go. But Heavenly Parent, I know that you love each and every one of us dearly. You have plans and hopes for each and every one of us, and you have plans and hopes for this world. And if we can be used in any way to help solve the problems of this world, to return goodness and beauty to you, I pray that you can use my life and our lives in this community to serve the greater purpose, Heavenly Parent. We know that it's not a sacrifice. It's just giving back love for all the ways in which you have loved us and prepared us for our lives today. We have, despite the challenges that we face in our life, many blessings. We want to be a blessing to others, and we want to be a blessing to you. We want to make you proud. We want to make you happy. We want to give you hope. I pray, Heavenly Parent, that my life, that you can guide my life. You can guide all of our lives. We know that the end result of that will be greater joy and happiness if we will follow your way and we will follow your word, Heavenly Parent. We are just grateful for this opportunity to be together. And I want to thank you for all the ways in which you've guided us to be here at this moment today. You have brought us to this time in history. You have brought us to this moment because of love and because you want to see your good world restored. And I really hope that we can be a part of that, Heavenly Parent. We don't want to go our own way. We want to walk with you. I thank you, and I offer this prayer in my name, Michael Adonia Hendrick, Blessed Central Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.